Welcome inside for another edition of SJHL Insider. I'm your host, Clark Munroe. We're here in the IKS Media studios, of course. A great show coming up. We got a lot to talk about. Obviously, the trade deadline has come and gone, and a whole lot of stuff. We got 4 games this week. We got 10 games later this week to get into. Some showcase roster information that's come out just earlier today. So we'll break down those rosters. We have an update to our SJHL fantasy draft that we changed earlier this week on SJHL Weekly, and a whole lot more. We're going to be joined by head coach and general manager of the Kindersley Klippers, Clayton Jardine. Always a good time talking to Clayton, so we're excited for that, to talk about his changes that their team made at the trade deadline, and so much more to get into. But first, of course, we got to thank our sponsors who turn the lights on, they keep the lights on and everything in here, so we love our sponsors. We got to say thank you to Cantera Seeds, Borgo, Capital Auto Mall, who hosted us earlier this week, Sask Lotteries, Saskatchewan Construction Safety Association, Chevrolet, Nutrient, Tourism Saskatchewan, UPL, Sask Energy, SGEU, Great Western, SGI, and RBC. Thank you to all of our sponsors, of course. Well, thank you to this guy, too, because he was my generous play-by-play voice on the Notre Dame Hounds broadcast last night. I was his color commentator. Jamie Neugebauer, voice of the Notre Dame Hounds, co-director of media with the SJ. Jamie, welcome in. It's a great start to the week. There's been so much going on. It feels like it's been longer than a week since our last broadcast, just because so much stuff has gone on. But how are you doing? Everything good?
Yeah, good. A little bit tired, I'll be honest, but I'm doing good. Can't complain. And very, very, very excited to talk some showcase rosters that came out. As you mentioned earlier today, I love when we basically just talk about players. That's my favorite thing to do.
Yeah.
So we're getting to do that today. So that's fun.
Yeah, that's what this is all about, right? We want to showcase our players and talk about their great talents and abilities. And one thing you may have noticed is... if you're watching on YouTube, you probably wouldn't have noticed if you're listening on podcast platforms. But if you're watching, we got some Prairie Proud gear, which we've been teasing for like 3 months now. So I'm wearing the polo. Nugesy's got the hoodie on. We got some T-shirts. We got some hats in front of us here. Jacob, I know we talked about it, that you wanted me to not take a hat. I'm totally taking a hat. I'm just telling everybody right now, one of these hats is going missing after the show. But anyways, with that in mind, it's time for the Prairie Proud hat trick. Love that, as always. Now, one thing that... speaking of Prairie Proud, just before we move on, we got a great message from them. We're going to put out some posts, I think, with them shortly, just with all of the gear that we are partnering up with them for. And this partnership is special for many reasons. But first of all, hockey has been a long, integral part of the Saskatchewan identity, and Prairie Proud is happy to bring all of it together. As you can see, I'll show you one of these T-shirts here. I think, is this one called the Power Play? Bryce, did you have one of these ones? Is it called the Power Play shirt? Is that what we're talking about? There's some sort of special name for this one.
Yeah, the Power Play. Yep.
Yeah, the Power Play. So this one, as you can see, Bryce is modeling it in the back room there. Again, if you're watching on YouTube, look at him. Look at that. Beauty. Look at that beauty of a man.
Fits well.
What a
the best looking man that I've ever met from North Dakota.
There you go. The standards are low. Sorry, Bryce. We're all from the same place.
Yeah, same area.
Same
North Dakota.
But as you can see, they have the awesome face-off circle design with the sticks across, and it's a really great design. The people did a great job over at Prairie Proud, so super happy to be modeling this, and I think we'll be giving away some of this shortly to some people around the league, and maybe some viewers, maybe some listeners. I'm not entirely sure yet, but stay tuned for more of that information. Obviously, getting involved with community engagement with the SJHL with Prairie Proud is really awesome, getting into all 12 communities. And Cole Thorpe, the founder, who I grew up with playing baseball against the guy, he was a monster back in the day. He grew up in a rural community. He witnessed firsthand the economic impact the league has on small communities and cities in the province. So he's happy to be a part of all of that. So there's going to be more coming out with Prairie Proud, and you can probably find it on our website in the coming days, but we'll get that all out for you. And just super happy to be partnered with those guys. But with that in mind, we did the Prairie Proud hat trick, and topic number 1 is there was 4 games this week already, so we got to recap those. Let's have a look at Tuesday's score. There was just the one game. Weyburn beat LaRange in a shootout 3-2. LaRange is on a little bit of a southern road swing, and as you can see on Wednesday, they moved down the road to Estevan, where, Estevan got off. It was an interesting one. We'll talk about that one. That was a wild game. Melfort got a 4-1 win over Kindersley at home, starting a new streak for them. And then Humboldt, when what was a very interesting game start to finish for multiple reasons on both sides of the ice. A 4-3 overtime win for Humboldt. We'll get into that in a minute, but let's start back on Tuesday, Nugsy, with Larange fighting for their playoff lives right now. They put up a great effort against a top 4 team in Weyburn, but the Red Wings pulled it out in the shootout for a 3-2 final score. Weyburn got off to a hot start with 2 goals in the first period. Luke Schrader's first as a Red Wing and Josh Sale's 8th of the season. But the Ice Wolves stormed back with goals from Brett Boucher and Tate Donkin to tie it up. And a stalemate in the third and overtime pushed it to a shootout where Luke DK got the game winner. Graham Brown made 45 saves in the loss, while Angelo Zoll made 26 saves. He was solid in the win. Nugsy, from what you heard and what you saw in this one, what happened in this game?
Yeah, I watched a lot of it. And it was entertaining.
Yeah.
It was very entertaining. I talked to Cody Mapes a couple days before this game when Notre Dame was in Weyburn about Josh Sale, and Cody was very, very excited to get him back from Humboldt in that deal for Dazza Mitchell, of course, the other way. And this is the best I've seen Josh Sale in the SJHL. There's no question about it. He was flying out there. He was making things happen, and I think he's happy in Weyburn Red, which is good, and Cody Mapes is clearly happy to have him in Weyburn Red. It was very entertaining. Second game in a row as well, where Weyburn played a team, well, kind of below them in the standings at home, and I don't want to say they didn't have their foot on the gas, maybe as much as they would have liked, but again, Notre Dame, they could have lost, and this one they could have lost. They had a 2-0 lead and thought maybe they were flying, and then Larange scored 2 to tie it, and then you get into a third period in overtime, and you run into a situation if you're Weyburn where maybe if Larange gets the lead, you have one of the best goalies in the league in Larange's net in Graham Brown. So the Weyburn Red Wings, again, you could say probably frustrated that they maybe didn't dominate as much as they would have hoped. Again, you give Larange lots of credit, but on the other side of things, just like the Notre Dame game, they found a way to win. And with this Weyburn team, sometimes you wonder, is it, do they have to win pretty all the time? And they clearly don't. They'll find a way to win a gritty one like this, and can give Larange a lot of credit. Graham Brown made a lot of great saves as well. So, hey, the Weyburn Red Wings found a way to win, and that's how you go far in this, because it's the dog days right now.
Yeah, Graham Brown over 2 nights, by the way, about 90 shots over 2 games back to back. So we'll get into that one next. But what do you think about this, Nugsy? Larange, obviously, they made a couple changes at the deadline. Weyburn did as well, but and just talking about Larange specifically, trading away their leading scorer, Mason Buchert. But at the same time, they remained competitive. We talked about this before in our preview last week, the trade deadline preview, that they would be competitive sellers because their playoff lives are on the line. And as of before last night's games, they were tied for that final spot. After this game, they put themselves into a tie that we're talking about. And they still have a very good shot at finalizing maybe a playoff spot in the next couple of months. They need to get some wins together, though. But they're in desperation playoff mode, whereas Weyburn, not so much in that mode. Not saying that they're not trying as hard as Larange might be, but is there something to that Larange might be in scrappy playoff mode right now to try to get into that final spot?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think the way that Kevin Kaminski coaches, it's always kind of, you better be playing 100% if you're playing for Larange. That's the way it goes. You know what? They sold Mason Buchert. Definitely not a sell-off. As you said right there, they're still quite old. Who did they bring back? They brought Alex Mack. From Kindersley. How old is Alex Mack? He's 20.
20, yeah.
It's not like they brought in a bunch of young bucks. They got Tail Feathers, who's a nice piece too. They do have some good young players, for next year and beyond too, Larange, but they're still led by 20-year-olds for the most part. Hudson Cameron, we'll talk about it in a second, I guess, had a magical night the next night. He's another guy. Yeah. Jacob Gazette's been around. Ryland Silver's been around. So, they're still very old, is Larange. So, if they can get into the playoffs, no fun at all. But I like the work that Kevin Kaminski and his staff has done to really balance veteran and youth and have, today be tough to play against and tomorrow, have something to look forward to also. Yeah,
Dayton Tailfeathers is going to be an interesting one to watch. He had 9 points in 19 games before the trade, obviously not getting into the lineup in Kindersley as much as he probably wanted to, but he's getting a great opportunity now in Larange. And he was listed last night on the first line with Alex Mack and sorry, I can't think of who the other first player was on the right wing there, but At the same time, I think he's going to get a good opportunity. I'm curious to see. He's a 6'2", 175-pound player. Got
rangy,
some talent, rangy, absolutely. So keep an eye on him if you're watching Larange games. Keep an eye on Dayton Tailfeathers. Should be interesting there. Let's move on. We'll continue talking about Larange, but we'll focus more on Estevan here. Larange continued their Southern Road swing on Wednesday night, but it didn't look good early as the Bruins got out to a 4-0 lead. Now, Nugsy, we were broadcasting, obviously, in Notre Dame while this was happening. So we were like, whoa, 4-0 for Estevan in the first period. Holy cow, that game is over. Well, not so much, as Larange scored the next 4 goals to tie it up. But the hometown Bruins did come on later in the third period for 3 more goals to notch a 7-4 win. Steven Starenka made his SJHL and Estevan Bruins debut, got 4 points in his debut. Graham Brown, another 41 saves in back-to-back nights, over 40 saves back-to-back. And the Bruins split action between their goaltenders, Beck Boito and Zach Shaughnessy. Shaughnessy ended up getting the win. But that was an interesting one. Did you go back after our game last night and look back and see anything that happened in that one?
Yeah, watched the highlights and spoke to Jason Tatarnic a little bit. And you talk about a team that looks real different on their roster than before the trade deadline. The Estevan Bruins, they have about 7 new guys that are going to be in the lineup on a regular basis. Yeah. Obviously, they traded away their captain in Cade Kennedy to Humboldt, who we saw yesterday as well. But you look at the instant return, Steven Starenka, Caleb Potter, Ethan Andrews has been very good for them too, and is coming in. So, Jason Tatarnic, every single season, the Bruins are a better team in the second half of the year after the new year, after the trade deadline, whatever you want to demarcate half a year. Right. The Bruins are always a much better team in the second half for whatever reason under Jason Tatarnic. So no surprise to me that they started good, and obviously this Larange team under Kevin Kaminski and Kyle Snyder will never give up, and they clearly didn't. And Hudson Cameron had himself a night, and again, like as I just said there for Larange, they have a bunch of 20-year-olds. So they are still, lots of guys who are kind of on their last hurrah for junior hockey. They're going to give it all they have to get whatever they want. So again, they didn't quit. But then, the skill and the depth of Estevan there at the Affinity Place. I'm just still waiting. I still look at this roster for Estevan, Clark, and you could tell me if you agree. But there's still so much talent. There's so much ability. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense that they're not really in the pack. Not just to sneak into the playoffs, but to be a legit playoff team. That's what I believe. If they can get goaltending from Boito and from Shaughnessy, they've been through a whole bunch of goalies this year.
I mean, that's probably part of it, right? So, is their roster? They've had some injury issues over the course of the season. Maybe a little bit of underperforming from certain guys here and there earlier on in the year. Now that they've made these changes, I just want to send out a personal thank you to Steven Starenka, because when they picked him up, when they got reassigned, I texted a buddy of mine from Estevan and I said, he might end up being your best forward. And then he goes out and scores 4 points in his debut. So it made me look really smart. So I appreciate that. Steven Starenka, thank you. And I know that one of the other players, sorry, it's escaping me right now, but got his first goal as well as an Estevan Bruin. So it was a night of great debuts. Cade Stringer, thank you. It was a night of good debuts and first goals and things like that for the Bruins. And I'm sure Jason Tatarnic probably doesn't love a 7-4 game, but the fan base probably came away from that game saying, okay, you know what? Now I'm a little bit more invested going back into the second half of this season. So a big night in Estevan. Let's move on, Nugsy, unless you have anything else for that one. Let's move on to Melfort Kindersley, 4-1 game. Despite being one of the hottest teams in the league coming into this game, the Kindersley Klippers fell 4-1 to the top-seeded Melfort Mustangs Wednesday night. Zach Anderson notched the lone goal for the Clips on a rare penalty shot. Yeah. A penalty shot. While Will Monroe, Logan Belton, Zach Turner, and Nick Andrusiak scored for Melfort in the win. Brett O'Halloran, who's been fantastic all year long, had 23 saves in the loss, while Madden Malacca, a little less busy with 17 saves in the win. Overall, when you see 23 saves and 17 saves, it makes you kind of feel like it was a low-event game. Was that the case in this one?
Yeah, I don't have too much to say about this game. You got to give Kindersley a lot of credit for sticking in it. Yeah. The shots were 14-2 in the first period for Melfort. That's no shot at Kindersley. Lots of teams go into Melfort, and it's a tough go. Yeah. Hey, again, Brett O'Halloran gives Kindersley a chance to win most nights, and again, for an 06 goalie, that's super impressive. But at the end of the day, Melfort did what they did, and it's 5 games now in 2025 for Melfort. 4 of them they've allowed 1 or fewer goals.
Let me check on that. That's good.
That's pretty good.
That's good. Yeah.
That's all I got to say.
That's good. And you know what? Melfort, like I said, kind of in the preamble to this one is, and maybe they're starting up a new streak because Kindersley, they came into this one in the 7 games prior. They were 6-0-0-1.
Yeah.
So undefeated in regulation in 7 games coming into this one. They've been playing great. Obviously, Mason Buchert picked up at the deadline. We're going to be joined by Clayton Jardine momentarily to get his thoughts on the trade deadline and everything going on with Kindersley right now. And obviously the showcase rosters, his players are well represented on the showcase rosters as well. So we'll talk about that a little bit more with Clayton coming up. Let's talk about the game that you and I were at, as well as Roy McGoran and Hannah Grace. We had a busy broadcaster's booth in Notre Dame last night. 4 of us were up there, which doesn't happen very often. But a spirited back and forth affair in Wilcox led to an overtime game-winning goal from Jacob Streetsy as the Humboldt Broncos defeated the Hounds at the Dunk Tank Wednesday night. A slow start for the Hounds allowed the Broncos to get out to an early 2-0 lead, but a late goal in the first from Neka Jean gave the Hounds a bit of a momentum boost going into the second because they scored 20 seconds into the second period. Anthony Nolan gave them a lead, and then later on they tied it up, but they later on got the lead on a goal from Damian Metastasio. Maddox Amaral answered back to make it 3-3 shortly after that. And then a stalemate in the third led to a sweet rush by Jacob Streetsy in overtime, who spun around and tucked the goal under the pads of Spencer Borsos. You can tell I put a little bit of effort into this because I saw it all in person to seal this one. Borsos, though, wow, stood on his head, making 47 saves on the night. Unbelievable performance. Dazza Mitchell on the other end, also fairly solid, stopping 28 of 31. Maybe 1 or 2 that he might want back at the end of this one, but at the end of the day, it was a fun game overall, fun night. I ran into Connor Miller in the lobby afterwards, and he said, "Hey, were you broadcasting this one?" I'm like, "Yeah, I was keeping Nugsy in line." And he said, "Oh, good. Did he get any? What's the word?
Are you sure it wasn't
any
Dazza?
smashes?"
Because Dazza was mentioning that.
I talked to Dazza too. Yeah, I ran into Dazza too, but Connor Miller was laughing, and I said, no clipboard smashing from Nugsy tonight, but he did throw his headset down after Streetsy scored the overtime winner." So Connor, and I think he had like 8 family members there, so they all had a giggle at that, and we had a good time. But yeah, Dazza was out there too with some family members, and it's always fun walking through the lobby in Notre Dame because all the local families from Regina or area come out and say hi to all the kids, so it's usually a good time. But Nugsy, from your perspective, I mean, this was a fun game. I thought it was a lot of, I'll say there was sloppiness on both sides throughout the game on different spurts. But at the same time, it was a fun game, I thought, overall.
Yeah, I don't understand why the Hounds can't play well in Wilcox. Like, they almost never this year. I could think of maybe 2 or 3 occasions, to me, where they've played well in Wilcox. They do play well on the road a lot, especially lately. Can't do it. I don't know. Maybe it's their pace of life. I don't know what it is, but again, not a good start. Again, sloppy both ways. Both teams were turning pucks over. I'm sure the hockey guys out there are gonna label me soft. That's fine. Did not like Marko Djordjevic fighting 17-15 into the third period. The Hounds desperately need him to be scoring goals, playing offense, and I know his heart's in the right place. He was like, "I'm a leader. I'm going to try to get things going for the team," but maybe somebody else could do that, and you go score a goal and make something happen that way. Yeah. So the Hounds had to deal without Marko, and Evan Bissell kind of got hurt as well earlier in the game and tried to come back and couldn't. So the Hounds on fumes. The effort was certainly there both ways. I think there was a real attitude from the Broncos coming in that this was a must win game, and they showed it. They put 51 shots on Borsos, who was unbelievable as usual. I don't know. It wasn't a great performance for the Hounds. It was a better performance for the Broncos for sure. But they again, the Broncos just happy to find a way. For them, it wasn't about style points. It was about finding a way. Hudson Kerr did have a great chance in overtime. And didn't put it away. And Dazza made a great save. And then Streetsy back the other way and scored. And that's the way overtime works. Yeah. But they got a point. Hounds can't be upset about getting a point. Given the fact that I don't think they played very well, but hey, you know what? For this Notre Dame team, you got to take the positives, and for Humboldt, same thing. Got to take the positives. They're back in the playoff spot there, and I'm sure they're home happy knowing that they got 2 points in their pocket. Yeah, for sure. And just overhearing assistant coach Carter Hansen's interview after the game with Roy McGoran.
They weren't overly excited about the effort overall. I mean, I think on both sides there was, like I said, there was stretches of sloppiness in this one. But he did say, but we're happy to get the 2 points and we're moving on to Battlefords, because I think they got Battlefords next up in the schedule. So they got to change their focus and get moving on, because they have some important games coming up. And I hope Rory doesn't mind me saying this, but he did kind of mention that this game for them was as close to a midseason must-win as it could get. It was just kind of that turning point, kind of, if we get a win here, we're going to hold on to our spot and have some confidence. If we lose this one, it's going to hurt the team quite a bit. So for them, I'm sure, like you said, they're going to get the 2 points, and we'll say, we'll get out of here, we'll move on to the next one.
Yeah. And the Hounds, 2 wins and an overtime loss out of 4. All against playoff teams to start 2025 for a very young team that traded away their captain, lost another 05 D-man in Andrews, obviously lost Paul Marine, extremely young team now. They always are, but even more now. For them to have a run like that is a good start for sure. Yeah,
definitely. Let's have a look at the standings, overall league standings first. As we can see, Melfort has regained their double-digit lead in first place right now with an 11-point cushion over Flin Flon, who is in second place. We've now seen that second tier of teams kind of grow and expand. It was 3 teams for a while, then it was 4, and now I would consider it 5, as Kindersley has moved themselves into the conversation as well, with Weyburn, Yorkton, Battleford's ahead of Kindersley right now in kind of that middle second tier. And then you move on to that third tier. There's, I would say, 4 teams. I'm going to put Estevan in that 4th tier right now, with Melville at the top of that. Humboldt obviously now securing a playoff spot at the moment, with a game in hand on Larange, who's behind them with 32 points. Estevan, like I said, with 28 points. Notre Dame down there with 24, and they have played a few more games than Estevan, who is ahead of them, and Nipawin with 19, who wasn't in action early this week. They'll return to the ice this weekend. We'll talk about that later. But let's look at the division standings now. As we can see, the Viterra division, it is getting interesting up there at the top, with Weyburn now passing Yorkton after last night's game. Yorkton still playing very well lately, though, 7-3 in their last 10, of course. Melville needs to get back into action. They're 3-7 in their last 10, so they're looking to kind of correct the course on that one. And then Estevan, as I mentioned, down there. Sherwood division, Melfort at the top with Flin Flon right behind them. It's weird to say Flin Flon right behind them, because they're 11 points back, but the way Flin Flon's playing, it seems like they're right behind them. On paper, not so much. Larange, again, they're not out of it, and they don't want to be out of it. They're not approaching it as if they're out of it, but 2-7, 0-1 in their last 10 games. Something needs to change there. They need to start flipping those numbers around a little bit. And then Nipawin at the bottom. And then in the Nutrien division, it is going to be a dogfight, I think. Battleford's at the top. Again, 5-5. They've kind of been that way for a lot of the season, yet they still have a solid record with some solid point totals. Kindersley 6-3, 0-1 in their last 10. They have been putting together some great string of hockey lately. Humboldt, with the win last night, gets them 34 points, I should say. 3-6-1 in their last 10, and then Notre Dame down there at the bottom. So there's the standings. Anything stand out for you before we move on to the next topic there, Newsy, just in terms of the standings and the fight that is going on across the league?
Yeah, no, I mean, people can read it, on screens and social media and whatnot, so it is what it is. But look, honestly, talking to some players around the league, I think, and this is maybe billboard material, I don't care, I honestly think people are more afraid of Flin Flon right now than Melfort.
Interesting.
And that's could change. Can't wait. I don't know. Hopefully those teams play each other again.
Yeah.
But I honestly think Flin Flon's playing better hockey.
They're quite the roster.
That's all I got to say.
It's quite the squad. Topic number 2, speaking of rosters and squads, this is the moment that Nugesy's been waiting for about 5 months. It's the SJHL MJHL Showcase. The rosters have come out. They have been announced. Did you end up getting a chance to dive into the MJ rosters at all?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll talk about that a little bit. But obviously we have a lot of time for the SJHL rosters, so let's bring them up now. Let's go one at a time, Nugsy. Okay, we'll start with, this is Team Blue. This is the under-18 team. So as you can see, Tate Donkin, Nika Jean, William Leonard, Turner McIntyre, Connor Miller, Ethan Sotner, Cohen Semft, Will Witter from Nipawin, Ryland Wheeler, Raiden Zacharias, Ashton Tate, Mason Karakachuk, Nathan De Silva on the blue line with Bryce Dahl, Lincoln Fisher, Jackson Herchak, Simon Martin, Thomas Reese. And then the goaltenders from Melfort, Madden Malacca, and from Kindersley, Brett O'Halloran. When you look at this 18U roster, there's some really good names on here, some really good talent. Their goaltenders are fantastic. I would say that's probably their strength if you're asking me. But when you see this roster, what do you like? What are you curious about?
Yeah, obviously I'm going to like every roster that we're going to put up. So I'm not going to dislike any roster. But look, I mean, I think, it's certainly built from the back end out. I think, Malacca and O'Halloran is a starter on his team, and Kindersley and Malacca could be a starter in any team / in the Western Hockey League as well. Right. But yeah, look, again, I think it's going to be some young bucks on the back end that are going to really open some eyes. And I love Tommy Reese. I've been talking about for a long time. Again, I think he doesn't play the prettiest game, so it'll be interesting how that translates to a showcase type environment, but he's never overawed with pace. There's a lot of speed on the Manitoba Young Guns team, so this team better hit the ground running, because if they think they're going to wade into this showcase, this Young Guns team is going to be in trouble. But again, they're more than capable of going out there and winning and doing the SJ Proud. But my one warning is that the MJ Young Guns are extremely fast, so this team better be prepared.
Sure, yeah. I mean, that's such an important part of it, right? Is the ability to move. And in a small kind of format tournament like this, where you get to only play 2 games, you only practice a couple times together, sometimes just that extra little quickness or speed, sometimes that's all it takes in a game like that. Whereas in a long-form season, it might not be the case, but in a quick little tournament, a quick little game format like this, it might be the difference. Let's move on to our first under 20-year-old roster, which is Team, I think it's like Gold was going to be next. So Team Gold includes the likes of, now it's weird to see Kin next to Mason Buchert's name, not LA or LAR or whatever we had for Larange, but Mason Buchert, Leighton Carruthers, Ethan DK, Marco Georgievich from Notre Dame, Keith Gruner, Jade Nyogan, Jerome Maharaj, Kent Moores, Anthony Piccinino, Ryder Ringer, Jackson Ruthven, Zach Anderson. What a group of forwards that is. And then you look at the defense, Max Chakrabarty, Boston Harkness, Liam Hunks, Luke Lepper, Kieran Ronan, Ryland Silzer. What a group, Nugsy. Like this is when I tweeted out earlier today, #stacked. I just feel like these rosters for these 20-year-old teams are loaded. And then in net, Matthew Keeper and Angelo Zoll. I mean, back-to-back goalie of the week winners right there. So Team Gold, you know what? If I'm looking at it right now, that could be the team to beat at this tournament, I think. What do you think about Team Gold?
I mean, again, they're all good. They're all supposed to be good teams. If they're not, none of them are. If they're not good teams, any of 3 of them, then what are we doing? So that goes without saying. Certainly it'd be interesting to see, the injury situation to Leighton Carruthers. Hopefully he's back and ready to play and can do it. But certainly, I mean, I really like this group, as we'd expect to like all the groups, but I really like this one, and specifically because there's some skating. And I talk about, there's some guys, if you could do it in regular season, SJ, any league, then that's fine. And a lot of these guys do because they're veteran good players. But can you skate? And that is so big at these events. We know the Manitobans can skate. We watched them at the showcase. There's a bunch of those guys. Put that back up, please, just quickly. Team Gold there. And again, I really like how this decor can manage things. They have guys who are not just offensive. They have guys who are defensive. I think they have, honestly, some of the best D-men in the SJ, all kind of on this list. And you have to put, Flin Flon guys and Weyburn guys, kind of together. So that's what they were thinking there. And then, our keeper and Zoll, the 2 best goalies in the league, could be argued. I mean, really, really excited to watch this group go. And again, but this group can really skate. DK, Maharaj, you think about Zach Anderson. He's a guy to me that will open some eyes because he can fly. So that's kind of the group that I'm going to really keep an eye on. And it's a good point by you. Yeah, for sure. It's a really good group. But let's move on to Team White. To wrap it up here, we got this is kind of the Melfort Yorkton team. As we split the teams up. Well, I don't do it, but we split the teams up kind of like we bulk the teams in certain groups. So this is it's going to feature quite a few Melfort Mustangs and Yorkton Terriers here. Logan Belton from Melfort, Kai Benosh, David Coyle, Jaron Denwaye, Nikita Ivashenko, who just scored a goal for Team Ukraine today over at the. What is it? The 1B World Juniors. So congrats, Nikita. And I actually heard from his billet. He found out that he made this roster with his family.
So isn't that pretty cool?
That's awesome.
Otherwise, he wouldn't have found out. Like, he wouldn't have been with his family. Since he's over there right now,
nice.
He's found out with his family. So that's really cool news. Ashton Hutchinson, Keenan Ingram, current point leader in the league. Boris Kaufman, Riley Kotai, was the current leader in the league for a long time. Dustin Renas, Jacob
they're tied
Streetsy.
at this point.
They're tied? Oh, thank you. Thank you for the update. I guess Kotai maybe got a point or two last night to tie it up. Jacob Streetsy, Zach Summers. And then on defense, Nick Andrusiak, Trey Fouquet, Jordan Grill, Oakley McElwain, Nolan Roberts, and Ty Thornton. Again, what a group. And then Christian Coombs and Justin Merrick in net. Again, what a group. I really like this team as well, Nugsy. Is there any differences at all that you see from this team to the other 20 and under team?
Yeah, I mean, again, like I look at pace. Like I think again, this team better not turn pucks over. I'm not saying they're a bad skating team. Obviously, they're elite players in our league. They better be careful with that. They better get into the structure and figure it out. Again, you're going to need. Again, I'm hammering this again and again, but you need a guy that can skate. Obviously, I've been so thrilled to see how well Zach Summers has done in terms of regrouping and getting back from his injury situation. And I'm so happy that he's here, and doing well. And maybe you pair him with a shooter like a Keenan Ingram, and what a tasty combination. That'll be not that Keenan Ingram is struggling to find guys to tee him up in Yorkton, of course. Dustin Renas, again, he can really skate. Again, I think the forwards here can really skate. The D is very mature and very experienced on this group, and obviously you have the championship experience of those Melford guys, and the fact that you have 3 Melford D on one team means that they have obviously lots of chemistry together. We've talked about we watched Fouquet and McElwain play half the game yesterday for Humboldt. So again, they have chemistry and understanding. Should be very interesting to see what this team will do when they come together. But again, there's no bad teams here. Obviously,
no,
if we put a bad team and sent it to the showcase, I think that would be stupid of us. So I think again, 3 good teams, and I'm happy with what I've seen for sure.
Let's have a look at the schedule for the event itself.
Just quickly.
There's going to be 6 games, of course, over 2 days. So as you can see, it's going to be gold versus red to kick it off at 12 p.m. And, of course, that's Saskatchewan time because we're at the same time as Manitoba. This is all happening in Winnipeg. And then at 3 p.m., it's going to be the SJHL White versus MJ Black. And then at 6 p.m., the Youngsters. They get the primetime spot, the Youngsters this year. SJ Blue versus MJ White. And then the 20-year-olds flip-flop who they play on the next day. Again, at 11 a.m., it's going to be the MJ Black versus SJ Gold. 2 p.m., MJ Red versus SJ White. And then the 18-year-old teams play against each other at 5 o'clock. So it's going to be a ton of fun. Who's coaching which team again, Nugsy? Do you have that information for the Saskatchewan teams?
Just give me 1 second.
And while you're doing that, again, if you want to go find all the rosters and information, we have ours on our website. Manitoba released theirs on their website, so you can go check out who's on which rosters.
So the under-20 White is going to be coached by Trevor Blevins and assisted by Braden Klamosko, so Melfort and Humboldt. Gold, which is a U20, Cody Mapes, the head coach, Weyburn, and Doug Johnson out of Melville, the assistant
rivals,
coach. But they love each other. And then U18 will be coached by Emery Ollison, the Yorkton coach, and then Marty Smith and Battlefords will be the assistant. And again, all of them terrific coaches. And I've said it 100 times. I'll say it 100 times more. We've got incredible coaching in our league, so you really can't go wrong 1 to 12. I have 4 quick questions that we can hammer.
Oh yes, let's do
that. I don't want to keep Jards waiting too long. I really appreciate your patience. If you're still listening, Jards, we really appreciate it. Just quickly again, there are 10 MJHLers committed to D1 programs that are going to be at this thing, 3 for the SJ. And you say, okay, that's a big difference. Yes, but also SJHLers will show that they can play at that level with those guys and look just as good, if not better. And I think that'll do them well. So that's what I'm really hoping. So quickly, 4 questions. We'll try to keep it real short here. One guy that you are surprised didn't make it.
One guy. Now, here's the silly part for me. I didn't prep for this very well because Nugsy's like, I got questions for you. And rather than saying, okay, Nugsy, what were the questions? I just said, oh, this will be fun. And I didn't do the prep. How about, do you have one in mind that you could come up with first? And then I'll have mine by the end of the time that you're done.
Yeah, well, my biggest one, and just because I think he's just improved so much over his SJ career, would be Cole Thomas from L'Orange. There are a bunch of options, and then kind of a young gun. And I always talk about, I don't understand why he doesn't get the love because he's so much fun to watch, is Luke DK, Ethan DK's little brother, so skilled. But I know that Cody Mapes could only send 10 guys in to be nominated to be at the thing, and Weyburn has a roster full of superstars. So, it's hard to pick for everybody. But, I don't know for 100% whether Luke was in there or not. I'm just saying that could be why. But to me, it's Cole Thomas just because of the story, and Luke DK because, again, I think he could play with those young guns. Yeah,
I would say maybe like a guy like Ewan Rennie from Estevan's having a really good year, almost point per game out there. Jeff Hammond, when he's healthy, has been fantastic. I know York is well represented, so it's hard to send too many guys from one team. Ryland Williams is having a nice year. Jacob Cassette maybe, but I think they made a lot of the right calls overall. Maybe Spencer Borsos. We saw how dominant he can be despite getting a lot of action. He puts up a lot of saves.
Not to dispirit any of these four goalies, but he is a top four goalie to me. And again, you're like, he's a Notre Dame guy, blah blah blah. To me, there's no question he's a top four goalie in this league.
Yeah, maybe another guy, Elijah Anderson, maybe from Battleford. But we can go on for sure. There's lots. There's lots of guys. We could easily make. Oh my gosh, we could easily make a third team of 20-year-olds and a second team of 18-year-olds if you ask me.
Sure.
But
we'll do that in the next future show.
Yes,
why not?
Future show.
Yeah.
What was your second question?
One guy who you think is going to open eyes.
Well, you said Zach Anderson earlier. I think that's a really good one.
Which was my guy.
Yeah.
To open eyes.
Exactly.
So pick someone different.
Pick somebody else.
Just kidding.
I think like a guy.
Just give me one though.
Yeah, I think a guy like one of the defensemen, I think like a Nolan Roberts, I think is probably one of the more underrated guys on Melfort's roster. And the fact that he's going to be there, I think he's going to be a guy that everyone's going to be like, oh, I would love that guy on my team at the next level.
Well, the thing that's a great call because we think about scoring and passing and fancy things. He's going to destroy an MJ kid in the neutral zone, and people remember that. Too.
Also,
he's a heavy hitter.
Another name I got, Tate Donkin. I think Tate Donkin from L'Orange is going to fit in really nicely and show up really nicely in that youngsters game. So there you go. There's a couple names.
My answer after Anderson is Kieran Ronan.
Right.
From Estevan. Such a huge fan. Obviously, Estevan's had their up and down year, but he's top 4 or 5D in this league. There's no question about it. And it means a lot to me that Jason Tatarnic didn't deal him. And that says that Jason Tatarnic has not punted on this year at all.
No.
So there you go. Do you want to, I don't know, do you feel comfortable if I ask you one Manitoban you're excited to see, or you haven't looked at the rosters at all?
I haven't gotten the roster, but I will say Drew Mushimansky showed so well at the Warman Showcase that I'm really curious to see how he'll do at this one. I will say Drew Mushimansky.
Well, I mean, again, to think back from that, obviously Rowan Guevara from the Selkirk Steelers, he was unbelievable. Maybe he's the best 07 forward between the SJ and the MJ, like in the Prairies. He's awesome. Obviously Connor Peranuzzi from Steinbach was great there too. But Caden Glover having a wonderful year in Dauphin, and the top line for Niverville there. Merrick Bowles and Adam Vigfusen having such a wonderful year, and they're together, so they're going to have that chemistry. And maybe my buddy Matteo Speranza will sneak in too if there's an injury, because that is the top line for Niverville, those three. So maybe they could just all play together. All right, the last question then is, for whom do you feel like this event is the most important for their career?
Oh, one player?
One guy, yeah.
Oh, maybe Zach Summers. And the reason I say that is, he's already got a commitment to Maine, but I think he's got this kind of chip on his shoulder almost. I think some people have maybe forgotten how good he was and is. So I think for him to come out and put out a good showing will go a long way to kind of reaffirming who he is and the talent ability that he has. I would say Zach Summers would maybe be my answer for that.
That's a terrific answer.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. I'm going to take the rest of the show off.
For me, again, I think of I know I said one guy, but I'm going to go with two because Liam Hunks and Mason Buchert, guys who play on teams lower down. Now they're a little bit, teams that are flying a little bit. So these are guys that will get to really flex their muscles, show how elite they are, and I really do believe they are both kind of on the bubble for being D1 guys, and they both want to be that. And that's part of the reason why they both moved is because they felt like they needed, a different situation to really get seen. So Hunks and Buchert are the two for me, and there you go.
Yeah. Love it. Well, there you go. There's our showcase kind of wrap up. We'll do more showcase talk as we get a little bit closer later this month. We got not next week, but the week after. Is that the 28th and the 29th are the games, right?
Yep.
So we'll be recapping, not next week, but the week after. We'll recap the tournament on this SJHL Insider program. But on the 27th,
I won't be here on the 27th.
You won't be here on the 27th?
Because I'll be driving to Winnipeg.
You'll be there, yeah. So me and Rory, and maybe we'll bring a special guest in or something for that show. But we'll kind of preview the tournament and talk about it a little bit more in depth. And we'll have some fun next week with it too. But that does it for that. Now let's move on really quick because I know Clayton Jardine is waiting, so we want to get to him. But really quickly, we did our SJHL Fantasy Draft redraft or update draft. And just wanted to quickly update the point totals before and after our changes because I think this is a lot of fun. So obviously, Nugsy had a huge lead going into the redraft on Monday. Since then, his lead has shrunk a little bit. I've caught up a little bit, but not a crazy amount. But you're still in the lead. So you were at 314 before the draft, 314, or I guess as of today, but you're at 314 without the extra players. And you added 2 players, and now you're up to 376. So there you go. You have 376 points right now. I'm in second place right now at 350, so 26 behind. Prior to the draft, I was like 30 behind, so I've gained a few points. But I added Zach Summers, Leighton Carruthers, Ryland Silzer, David Coyle. You added Marco Georgievich and Luke Lepper. For Leighton Carruthers and Zach Summers, I only get their points from Monday onwards, and Zach Summers has put up 2 points since the draft. So that's pretty neat. And then David Coyle, Ryland Silzer, like I said. The Crusaders added Jackson Ruthven in the little edition draft, the compensatory draft. He got a point the other night, so he's added 1 point. And then they added Max Chakrabarty and Ashton Hutchinson. So they're sitting at 334 points right now. So they added a good chunk there to their totals. So they're 16 behind me, and I'm 26 behind you. So do the math.
Yeah, I actually think I was exactly 26 points ahead.
Were you?
When we looked at it last time too.
Okay, well,
so I guess it's exact same.
It's probably changed. They probably added some points since, so it's probably you're right. And then finally, Rory's down at the bottom. Little old Rory down at the bottom. Last year's champion, all cocky coming into this. He's 56 points behind you, Nugsy. He added Liam Hunks and Zach Anderson, and then Ethan DK and Dazza Mitchell in the compensatory draft portion. So there you go. That's our little quick fantasy update. Otherwise, we're still going to continue updating you on this one throughout the season, but very fun. I like that we did the additions this year.
Yeah.
The last couple of years we haven't added. We just kind of, if somebody leaves the league, sort of too bad, But this year I like that we've kind of adjusted that so we can keep the points flowing and add more players to the list because the more players, the better, if you ask me. Yep. You want to touch on anything there, or should we move on to our guest?
I just want to quickly say, actually, not about fantasy. I want to mention the 2 Melfort Mustangs that went up to Northern Michigan University. Ryan Duguay was the rookie of the week in their league there for Northern Michigan after scoring a hat trick and an upset win for Northern Michigan over Minnesota State last week. And Aiden Hutchinson's having a nice year too, especially as a rookie, 6 points in 19 games, and just goes to show, hey, go far in the playoffs, and if you play well enough, you'll be seen. And they found a way, and they weren't committed until their centennial run, and they're doing great. So happy to see that. And then Josh Kotai, and I just did post it on the SJHL website. He's in the running, the former Battleford's goalie, of course. At Augustana, he's in the running for the top goalie, the Mike Richter Award in the NCAA Division I. He's having a magical year. The talent was there. Marty Martinson, who was his broadcaster, said he's the best goalie I've ever seen in any junior hockey league, Marty said. And obviously he's watched Dub and whatnot. So Josh is a great pro prospect in D1 as well. So really happy for the Kotai family. Obviously Riley doing well too. So there you go, a couple points.
Awesome. Love to see it. Thank you for that, Nugsy.
Yep.
We are going to go out on the video chat line now and be joined by head coach and general manager of the Kindersley Klippers, Clayton Jardine. Clayton, thanks for hanging around and joining us today.
Thanks very much for having us, guys.
So obviously, I hate to bury the lead, so I'm not going to. Mason Buchert, the big fish in the trade deadline, added to the roster. Let's start with that, if you don't mind, Clayton. What was the approach going into the trade, and what does Mason bring to your roster now?
You guys have been touching on. I've been listening a little bit here, and kind of find ourselves in that 4 to 6 spot, which is ideal for us. And with that, we just thought that we needed to add a little bit of scoring. I think overall we've done a pretty good job of keeping the puck out of our net, and we went through a stretch there in November where we needed that extra goal. And bringing him in, obviously he can contribute to that extra goal, but I think it frees up some other guys to get some better matchups and play against the players they should be playing against. So just kind of puts everyone in the right seats.
So I guess now that you've had him in for a few days, you get him into a practice or two, a game, what kind of energy levels and what kind of excitement does Mason Buchert bring to your roster now?
Yeah, it was nice that he had some connections with some players on the team. So obviously those guys were super excited to have him. But I think as a whole, anytime you can add a leading scorer to your team, it's exciting. It's been nice for me because there's not a lot of things in his game that I feel like I need to help him with. He's a well-rounded hockey player, and he's learned from some great coaches in the past as well. So he's a lot stronger. The base that he has and how he plays is really nice for me because it's a lot of what I talk about with our young guys of how we need to hold on to pucks, protect pucks, and put them in good spots when you are going to distribute them. So he is really good at that, and that's something that our young guys can learn from.
For sure. And now, obviously, Mason stole a lot of the headlines, but you also picked up Thomas Phillips from the Norman Blizzard in the MJ. Can you talk about Thomas and why you wanted to add him to the roster?
Yeah, we've always been kind of looking for that last D-man to add to our core and to give us 8 as well and give us some depth. But Thomason is an extremely balanced skater. I think the way that I like to see our defensemen play fits in with what we're trying to do on the back end, and he can defend with his feet, defend with his stick, and distribute pucks really well out of the zone and through the neutral zone, and chip in offensively as well. So it's kind of the perfect package that we were looking for. And when he came available, it was exciting because they're, with you guys, with what we saw within all of the CJHL, there wasn't much in terms of just getting a player for a PDF. It was a lot of player for player trades, and we didn't think it was going to happen, but thankfully it did.
Yeah, for sure. And again, I guess he hasn't played maybe for you guys yet.
Jamie.
I guess he hasn't played for you guys yet. Can you hear me now or no? Can you hear me now?
Uh-oh. They'll work on it in the back.
They'll work on it in the back.
Do you want to tell me your question and I'll ask it to him?
Well, yeah, I guess I wanted to ask what he thought about the showcase rosters just generally, because I know how plugged in he is. So
yeah. So I guess the question from Nugsy, I'll do my best Nugsy impersonation here. The showcase rosters came out. You got a bunch of players on the showcase rosters. What were your first reactions to? Obviously, you were probably part of the selection process as a whole. What was your overall reaction to the Kindersley Klippers that are involved in the rosters as a whole?
Well, I think like everyone, you want all 24 of your players there. I think that's first off, it's tough, and everyone's got to understand that there's only so many spots on the rosters, and so I'm really proud of the players that did get selected, all 6 of them. So it'll be exciting for those players, but it's just nice to see within our organization we've gone from 2 to 3 last year and now to 6, and that's really kind of a measuring stick for yourself as an organization, is that you want to have as many players go to that, and if that number can keep climbing, that's great for us.
Yeah, got to mention Saskatchewan Construction Safety Association as well as part of the sponsor here with having a coach on.
Jacob
and a great
Faith
coach.
is so
Jacob
happy
Faith,
right now.
our director of marketing over there, was thrilled that we remembered to mention our great partners. Colin Puller, what a gent that guy is. Their chief there over there. So very cool. Jards, I got to ask you too. I mean, it seems like you have a pretty fun staff. I know you're as humble and hardworking as any coach in the league, and I know you would give Trapper and Gibby and all those guys all the credit in the world. So here's your opportunity, because I know you guys have looked far and wide. You're not just collecting Warman Wildcats alumni as easy as it seems like you're trying to put an alumni team together from the Warman Wildcats. As you mentioned, Mason, knowing a couple of guys maybe from back there. But I guess just talk about your staff. It seems like it's a fun crew. Just hanging in the office with you guys, it seems like it's a fun time.
Yeah, it's funny you mention it, because we're sitting here at Denair Beach on Amos Lake in Flin Flon, and Terrell came all the way up, our head scout, and brought all of his fishing gear, and so he had some rods that we were able to put in the water this morning. And that just speaks volumes to what he's willing to do for our club and our organization. And Trapper, of course, is just a great relationship with the players, and it's something you look for in an assistant coach. And he's able to challenge the guys and teach them, but also have a good relationship with them. And thankfully, when he was cutting an ice hole this morning, he didn't lose his toe. It was close, but it didn't happen. And then Gibby kind of wears as many hats as he possibly can. And there's a week coming up here where he's going to be joining me on the bench as well. As Trapper has to take off for a week, and you give a lot of credit to our 06s and 07s. Is Ryan's done a really, really good job of finding those players and bringing those players in. So it's a lot of recruiting for him. It's a lot of time on the phone for him, but he does a really good job of it.
There you go. Perfect segue too, because I want to talk about the young guns, and obviously you get together with the Kindersley Klippers. Now you're going to obviously ask about Buchert, maybe even an O'Halloran, maybe a Herchak, maybe the Perlinger twins, whatever it is. But what do we need to know going to the showcase to watch Ryland Wheeler and Ethan Sautner play? Because again, there's a bunch of guys on your team that obviously contribute well, but we don't always talk about them as much as maybe we should. So what do we need to know about Sautner and Wheeler specifically?
Ethan Sautner, he's a very smart hockey player, and he's able to outthink his opponent, and it's probably his biggest strength. So when he gets into tight spaces, his speed and it's in his agility that he's able to get away from defenders, and Ryland's really the same in terms of his vision and the way that he thinks the game. So had them on a line together as well for a little bit throughout the season. So they work well off of each other. Obviously, Ryland has produced at a high level, and Ethan has too. So they're used to that. And the nice part is that they've gotten better every single month. And that was kind of the conversation that I had with them this morning when they did get told that if they made the team, is that remember where you were in September and how far you've come, and really figured out how to play at your hockey level in terms of using your show. It was a fun conversation this morning with both of those guys, and you could see that they were thinking in their mind and remembering where they were in September and where they are now.
There you go. I also had to mention Gibby because you guys wanted to get me to interview him when the Hounds were in Kindersley, and I was like, no, I'm just going to interview Jards, and I think I might have hurt Gibby's feelings. So sorry, Gibby. Not really, though. I'm not really sorry.
Not really.
Not really. No, not at all, actually. I got to ask you too about getting obviously again we got to be delicate with how I word this, and I know you do too. But you're giving a good amount of opportunity to Brett O'Halloran, continuing to, and it's earned, and he's been wonderful in net. But obviously you still have Cody Jamin, who's been such a good servant. So as much as you're kind of willing to tell us, talk about kind of navigating the waters of having kind of a 1A or 1B or a veteran goalie and a young goalie who you both kind of believe in.
I joke about it, and I say it's Justin Close's fault. I have the Justin Close curse because my first year as a head coach, I was given Justin Close.
Sounds like a good curse.
And and then after that, my bar's pretty high. My bar's pretty high for goalies, but I went through probably 3 or 4 years after that of trying to find just a bona fide starter. So the conversation this year was what is wrong with 2 really good goalies? And Cody unfortunately had a pretty bad injury to start the year, and so even when he comes back, he's going to need 5, 6, 7 games to get back into it. It's like everyone starts in the summer, and that's why you play exhibition games. So from the outside looking in, from other people's perspective, you're wondering, what's going on with Cody, and for us, that's not it. We know that Cody is going to be Cody, and thankfully he was this past weekend. And the flip side of it is that Brett O'Halloran's been everything that we've asked him to be, and he's been the backbone to our team. At the start of the year, where you could have, if Brett wasn't Brett, we wouldn't be in the position to make the trades that we made at the trade deadline. And the favorite thing that I like about Brett is his swagger and his confidence, and the way that he plays. He doesn't look like a rookie or an 18-year-old. The way he carries himself day to day. So, yeah, just I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of people over the last 2 or 3 weeks, and some people might say, well, there's going to be a problem at some point because they're both going to want the net. I think that's every goalie's mindset. It doesn't matter if they're only going to play 5 games of the year. Every goalie wants to play every single game. So we are going to navigate that, and they're both great professionals when it comes to supporting each other. And I love 2 great goalies instead of 0.
Yeah, there you go.
And I have to say, O'Halloran was hilarious on that curling video that Tater Tots made too. So clearly has some personality too. So that's good.
Go ahead.
Thankfully, Tater's not on this trip for the ice fishing.
So Clayton, obviously one of the storylines with you guys in the first half of the season was a lot of home games for you guys. The second half, it's a little bit more on the road. Next 2 weeks, you're on the road. You're up in Flin Flon right now. Let's stick with Flin Flon for now. But what's your strategy going into this weekend? Obviously, with a very good Flin Flon roster right now, a big opponent coming into these next 2 games on Friday and Saturday.
From a coaching staff's standpoint, just the message to the players is, we're going to figure out who can play when the game gets hard, and that's the exciting part for me is to learn. You go into Melfort and you go into Flin Flon twice. There's gonna be guys that take a step and are noticeable in a positive way, and then there's some guys that have to learn how to play in this environment, and it's really hard to simulate a playoff type atmosphere in the regular season. But going into Melfort even last night, there wasn't a lot of room on the ice, and you guys touched on the amount of shots that both teams had, but that's playoff hockey. I think there was 3 power plays total. That's playoff hockey, and inside the dots, and especially at the top of the crease, there's not a lot of opportunity. So you got to bend your knees a little more and go to the net a little harder.
With only 5 home games left on your schedule, is this something that you're looking at as, now I'll say this, but as a disadvantage for you, or are you looking at this as maybe a good test for your team as you do go down the home stretch into the playoff run?
Well, I think as a coach, you got to be realistic, and we're going to try as much as we can to get into the 3rd, 4th spot in the standings. But we've all been around long enough to understand that if you're not, then you're a road team for the playoffs, and you're a road team for all of the playoffs. So you don't really think about that when you're doing the scheduling meeting. But I really like what we're going up against for the next month and a half here. So once again, as a coach, it's exciting. Obviously, as a player, you love to play at home. But the things that we can do on the road, the things that we can find to do to come together as a hockey team and enjoy the road, to love the road, is what we're trying to do here, and be really comfortable of going into the other team's building and winning.
Well, there you go. Well, 2 big games this weekend. You're in Estevan next weekend, so there'll be plenty of stuff to do for the team in that stretch. And good luck the rest of the way, Clayton. Excited to see how it all goes, and we'll talk to you down the road.
Perfect. Thanks, guys.
All right, there we go. Clayton Jardine, of course. Always love talking to that guy, head coach and general manager of the Kindersley Klippers. Thanks for his time today. So there you go, Nugsy. That's the bulk of the show. We have obviously 10 games this weekend to talk about. So why don't we do that now? Let's have a look at Friday's schedule. We see L'Orange is continuing their little southern swing right now in Estevan. Weyburn is going to be in Melville. That'll be a fun one. Melfort will be in Yorkton, another battle of the heavyweights. Humboldt will be in Battlefords, as we talked about after the game last night in Notre Dame. We talked about that Humboldt was going to be playing against Battlefords. And then Kindersley, as we just mentioned, Clayton Jardine's crew will be in Flin Flon. Well, they're already there. They're in Flin Flon, taking on the Bombers at the Whitney Forum. And then on Saturday, Kindersley again, we mentioned, is going to take on Flin Flon twice. And then Battlefords and Humboldt flip-flop. Estevan will be in Melville taking over from Weyburn the night prior. L'Orange will be in Weyburn. Again, just continuing their southeastern swing. They're just flip-flopping venues every night, it seems. Kindersley and Flin Flon, like I said, and then Yorkton's going to be in Notre Dame.
No, Yorkton, Yorkton and Notre Dame are going to play
right,
in Kenora,
this is the Kenora game. So it's the home game for Notre Dame, but it's basically in Yorkton's backyard.
Yeah. And on the other side of Yorkton
right.
from Wilcox.
Right. So, I mean, it is what it is. It's a neutral site game. They're all fun regardless.
As I said during the show, for some reason, the Hounds can't play well in Wilcox, so maybe neutral site games are better for them.
Kenora,
anyways.
that's Clay Sleva was from Kenora, right? Or who's from Kenora? There's a player from Kenora.
I believe so.
I think it was Clay Sleva.
I'm pretty sure.
This brain works in weird ways. Can't remember what I need for groceries. I somehow remember Clay Sleva might be from Kenora. Who knows? Nugsy, what are you looking forward to this weekend?
Yeah, look, man, I love the soul of that Kindersley team. I know we just had Jardine on, but they got soul, they got heart, they got Mason Buchert. I think it's going to be a good couple games at the Whitney.
Yeah,
get your tickets. Fun. You don't need to tell you that, Flin Flon people.
Yeah.
Should also say they're not in Flin Flon. They're in Denair Beach, which is very close to Flin Flon.
Fair enough.
But it's a different community. But get your tickets. That should be fun. Melfort Yorkton as well. Yorkton wants everybody to say that they're big dogs and they're big boys, and they are a great hockey team. But you got to prove it. You got Melfort coming in at home, and I'm sure Emily Lawson saying the same thing to his group. So there you go.
And I always look for one headline that's not a heavyweight battle. I mean, I think obviously Melfort Yorkton heavyweight battle, Kindersley Flin Flon the weekend series is going to be a heavyweight battle. 2 top 6 teams in the league. I'm looking at a team, and we just talked about them quite a lot today on the show, and they were the busiest team at the trade deadline, the Estevan Bruins, and they have L'Orange right ahead of them in the standings, and Melville, who is. We still have to kind of figure out what Melville is, I think, in the next couple of weeks. And if Estevan can pull off a couple wins, I've been saying it for a while, they're a team that's only a good weeks away. If they have a couple of good weeks, they could be right in that conversation. And 2 teams right now that would be huge to beat are teams right ahead of them. And I'm saying Melville's right ahead of them. They're a bit up in the standings, but with the way they've been playing lately, if they can take advantage of a couple of big games this weekend, wow, look out.
Estevan has 5 games in hand on Melville.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's that. We got to get to the highlight of the week, too.
I know, I saw that. Thank you, Bryce, and thank you, Jamie, for mentioning that. On Monday, we were on location at Capital Auto Mall, and I was so distracted by the beautiful vehicles on the inventory that I forgot to do the highlight of the week on Monday. So there's my little, that's why. That's why I forgot. It's the Tourism Saskatchewan highlight of the week, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was Ryder Muka of the Flin Flon Bombers. So let's have a look at that one now.
Face-off won by the Bombers. Ryder Muka twists off the wall. Muka to the front of the net, scores! What an individual effort from Ryder Muka.
I said it last night to you in person, Jamie. It looks weird seeing Dazza Mitchell wearing number 40 and not number 70, and also with the red gear and the green and yellow or green and gold jerseys. But I talked to him in the lobby, as I mentioned, and he loves the jersey pads combination. He calls it the Christmas tree setup, and I think that's fantastic. So there you go, Ryder Muka with a great goal, individual effort, spinning around on the boards, finding his way to the net, and tucking it around Dazza Mitchell. Not an easy feat. For anybody. So good play there. We could have probably just used some of last night's saves for this week's highlight of the week already. There was tons of good saves, but we'll save that for Monday's show. 10 big games this weekend, Nugsy. If you can't make it to the rink, which, I mean, get to the rink. It's the best time of the year to do it. The rosters are finalized. Now, as a fan base, you can go ahead knowing who's going to be on the ice every night. No, unless there's injuries, of course, but you know what I mean. The rosters are set. Go check out your teams. Get to the rinks. It should be a really good weekend. Lots of really good games. Lots of big points on the line. But if you can't make it, get your subscription to Flow Hockey and all of our social media platforms. Make sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, TikTok. Follow us on YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel. All of the highlights will be there for you. If you missed the game, go check out the highlights. And one more thank you to our sponsors, of course. Cantera Seeds, Borgo, Capital Auto Mall, Sask Lottery, Chevrolet, Saskatchewan Construction Safety Association, Nutrien, Tourism Saskatchewan, Sask Energy, UPL, SGU, Great Western, SGI, and RBC. Jacob, you missed it. I just gave a really great shout out to Capital Auto Mall once again because I said on Monday's show, I forgot to do highlight of the week because I was so distracted by all the beautiful inventory at Capital GMC. Jacob's like, yes. So there you go. Nugsy, final word before we get out of here.
I can't wait for the showcase. Can it be now? Can we go now?
No,
I guess if I left now, I'd be a little early.
Yeah.
But,
you can go a little early. I don't know if it's in the budget for you to stay 2 extra weeks.
Also, my wife would not be thrilled with that.
Probably not. Probably not. So maybe it's best that you stay here for a little while longer. So keep it locked to SJHL.ca. We got tons of great stuff coming out for you in the next weeks. Make sure you get out to the rinks. Enjoy the hockey. The weather is great right now. Knock on wood, obviously, because that could change in a heartbeat. But the weather is great. So take advantage. Get out to the rinks. If you're a little farther outside of a community, maybe get to one. If you want to go to a rink you haven't been to before, like Hannah, Grace last night, never been to Wilcox. If you want to get out to a rink you've never been to, now is a great time to drive and take a drive across this beautiful province. Support your teams. We'll be back on Monday with SJHL Weekly to recap the weekend. And until then, everybody, I guess I should say thank you for everyone here at IKS, Bryce and Jordan in the back room there, everybody working on the graphics and design team, Kelly Lewick, and let's say Stephen Turner in there. We'll throw Josh Burns in there, and everyone here at IKS. So thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you on Monday. Enjoy the hockey this weekend, everybody.